Hi, this is New Time on Silkway TV channel. We introduce you with the most visible news and important events that happened throughout this week in Kazakhstan and Central Asia. More details on politics, economy, social and cultural life with opinions from the most recognizable experts of Kazakhstan and world. I'm Dorian Sagulov and this is what you'll see today. The national Kurultai is over. Now it's time to deliver. What are the key tasks facing Olzhas Bektenov's government this year? A confrontation with no winners. Who will feel the impact of Donald Trump's trade wars? A new year for all Turkic and Iranian peoples. How is the world preparing to celebrate the main spring festival, Nowruz? Kazakhstan's economy has grown by 5.4% since the beginning of the year. This was reported by the country's Prime Minister Olzhas Bektenov during the meeting with the President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev at the Akurda residence this Tuesday. They discussed key initiatives from the fourth session of the National Congress, Kurultai, held earlier this month, focusing on infrastructure, energy projects, digitalization and human capital development. President Tokayev emphasized the need to continue supporting the economy, attracting investments and enhancing social policies. So, how will the government fulfill the economic development goals set at the last National Kurultai? We'll take a closer look in the following report.
Prime Minister Olzhas Bektenov, in his article published this week, highlighted the results of Kassym-Jomart Tokayev's six-year presidency, focusing on Kazakhstan's socio-economic progress. According to his statement in the paper, under President Tokayev's leadership, the country has seen significant economic growth as reflected in the figures. Last year, Kazakhstan's GDP reached $228 billion, with GDP per capita surpassing 14,000, an increase of nearly 50%. Prime Minister Bektenov emphasized that Kazakhstan is now on the verge of joining the group of high-income countries.
Kazakhstan has prioritized the diversification of its economy, focusing on the development of the non-oil sector. There are already tangible results from this effort, with non-resource industries driving economic growth. From 2019 to 2024, manufacturing production increased by 31.4%, and the construction sector saw a growth of 96.3%. Overall, manufacturing industries now account for a share of the economy comparable to extractive industries.
Last year alone, Kazakhstan launched 180 investment projects worth almost $2 billion, marking the highest growth in a decade. Industrial production rose 20% and machine engineering grew threefold in 6 years. In this regard, Prime Minister Olzhas Bektenov stressed the importance of foreign investments for the country's growth, noting Kazakhstan's strong global reputation among international investors. Specifically this year, through the Baytarek holding, almost $16 billion will be invested, with plans to increase that amount to $20 billion by 2027. Member of National Kurultai Karbek Arstanbekov, commenting the last progress, says Kazakhstan needs to keep investing in real sector economy for big economic growth.
At the one hand, we have to keep in inflation trends in the framework. In the other hand, we have to achieve big economic growth. Because as soon as we achieve the big economic growth, we can obligation the stability of budget, state budget. So we have to continue the financing the real sector of economy.
Thus, Kazakhstan's government has started implementing directives from the fourth session of the National Kurultai. Notably, this time at the Congress, more than 100 new proposals were made covering a bigger amount of areas compared with the first one held 3 years ago. During the governmental meeting after the Congress, Minister of National Economy Sergey Zhumangarin outlined the country's action plan to create new economic growth points, develop a fair tax system and improve tax administration.
We will tighten the requirements for those who want to start their own business to prevent fragmentation. Proportional taxes will act as a deterrent for those attempting to bypass the tax system. Additionally, to optimize expenses, we will conduct a review of all program documents and limit funding for administrative costs.
These decisions came from the last National Kurultai meeting, where President Tokayev discussed the ongoing tax reform, emphasizing the need to cut non-priority spending and optimize expenses by year's end. Additionally, he highlighted a series of major infrastructure projects, including few factories and power plants, currently underway across Kazakhstan to increase the foreign investment to the country.
Уже в 2025-2026 годах намечено...
The government is planning to construct gas steam power plants in Kazakh and Turkestan regions, along with the modernization of 2 thermal power plants in Almaty. Additionally, ferroalloy plants will be launched in Karaganda and Ekibastuz, along with a chemical complex for mineral fertilizer production in the Jambul region.
Kazakh president also addressed the rise of digital assets, including cryptocurrency and the blockchain, stressing the importance of digital transformation in this sector. He called for urgent government action to regulate internet assets, crypto exchanges, and attract investment in digital mining, aiming to reduce the shadow market and boost tax revenues.
At the end of 2024, the Astana International Financial Center reported that the total turnover of digital assets in the center had doubled, reaching $800 million. Recently, representatives from the company China Analysts revealed that the incoming volume of digital assets in Kazakhstan alone amounted to 15 billion. However, only 5% of digital asset turnover is legal. Our regulator needs to act urgently, as 90% of the turnover is outside the official budget.
Artificial intelligence is now playing a key role in global economies, and Kazakhstan is embracing this way too. As planned by the government, AI will assist in budget management, optimize government operations, and improve communication between the government and the public. Ministry of Digitalization shared that AI has already been integrated into budget planning with an intelligent model developed to forecast revenues and expenditures. This gives a hint that the trend is promised to be continued in Kazakhstan. Baljan Samigulina, New Time.
Presidents of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan exchanged warm greetings for a spring holiday Nowruz, offering wishes of peace and prosperity to the nations during their recent phone call. President Tokayev additionally highlighted the rapid progress in bilateral relations, emphasizing that the level of cooperation between the two states is a true reflection of the strategic partnership. Both leaders also reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening these allied ties even further and discussed the schedule for upcoming high-level meetings. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin held another phone call, their second since Trump took office as U.S. president. According to the White House, the conversation focused on strengthening the ceasefire agreement in Ukraine. However, the progress was limited. The key outcome was Russia's agreement to a 30-day pause on strikes against Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Putin also approved a prisoner exchange with Ukraine, which took place on March 19. President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev welcomed the outcome of the Trump-Putin talks on Ukraine. Press Secretary Ruslan Zhildebay reported later.
President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev has welcomed the outcome of the phone talks between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump on Ukraine. The head of state noted that both leaders demonstrated a willingness to achieve lasting peace based on concrete agreements, which is crucial for ensuring Eurasian security. Earlier, President of Kazakhstan had called on all parties involved to launch negotiations aimed at developing a peace formula for Ukraine, and also expressed support for the China-Brazil peace plan at the BRICS summit.
The next day, Trump spoke by phone with Volodymyr Zelensky. President of Ukraine later confirmed that he and Trump discussed an energy strike ceasefire with Russia. According to him, Ukraine would prepare a list of critical facilities that could be covered by a partial ceasefire brokered by the United States. U.S. stock markets has suffered their biggest drop since the start of 2025. The sell-off came after Donald Trump refused to rule out a recession as his new import tariffs take effect. Markets are in turmoil, with major companies losing millions, yet Trump is standing firm. Sweeping tariffs on all trading partners are set to begin on April 2nd. What risks does this new trade war pose for Washington? Why are giants like Tesla already feeling the impact? And most importantly, who will end up paying the price for the White House ambitions? Here's our explainer section. Wall Street is feeling the pressure as fears grow over a possible Trump recession. U.S. markets saw their biggest drop since early 2025 after President Donald Trump admitted that new import tariffs could push the economy into a recession. The Nasdaq 100 tech index fell 3.8%, wiping out more than $1 trillion in the market value, the worst one-day loss since October 2022. Shares of Nvidia also tumbled nearly 9% after reports of 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico. Despite the growing concerns, Trump said he will not back down and plans to go ahead with new tariffs on all U.S. trading partners starting April 2nd.
Look, we've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all. Aluminum or steel or cars, we're not going to bend. We've been ripped off as a country for many, many years. We've been subjected to costs that we shouldn't be subjected to. In the case of Canada, we're spending $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada.
Elon Musk's increasing involvement in US politics is beginning to take toll on his business. Experts describe this as brand politicization, a phenomenon that often damages a company's reputation and sales. The impact is already visible. According to the European Automobile Manufacturers Association, Tesla's sales in Europe dropped by 45% in January, compared to the same period in 2024. In Germany, sales dropped by a record 71%, while in France the decline reached 44%. Meanwhile, Canada, reacting to growing trade tensions with the US, is also taking action. For instance, Toronto has stopped providing financial incentives for Tesla vehicles.
We are giving incentives for people to migrate into electric cars, except we will stop giving incentives, financial incentives, to buy Tesla. So that we have a decision has been made in there. But then there are other electric cars around. And we have certainly said that if you want to buy Tesla, go ahead, but don't count on taxpayer money to subsidize it.
Experts warn that the global trade tensions could soon get worse. Donald Trump has promised to hit back at the European Union's plan to impose counter-tariffs on 26 billion euros worth of US goods next month. The row began after Trump introduced tariffs on steel and aluminium imports, drawing strong criticism from America's main trading partner.
The European Union treats us very badly. They have for years. I saw that. I had it out with them in my first term. It did well, but we had to solve other problems. And we did, but European Union's been very tough, and it's our turn too. You know, we get a turn at that also, but they have not been fair. They sue our companies and win massive amounts of money. They sued Apple, won $17 billion.
Across the Atlantic, European consumers are also taking a stand in this growing trade war. A survey conducted by the CVA research group revealed that 64% of Germans would prefer to avoid buying American products whenever possible. The majority of respondents said that President Trump's policies are already influencing their purchasing decisions. Daurin Sagulov, New Time. Oil prices climbed after U.S. airstrikes on Yemen's Houthi rebels carried out in response to their attack on commercial ships in the Red Sea. The Red Sea and the Suez Canal remain critical routes for oil and gas shipments between Europe, Asia and North America. At the end of 2023, the Iran-backed Houthis, designated as a foreign terrorist organization by Washington, launched a series of attacks on commercial vessels in the water area, claiming it was retaliation for Israel's military operations in Gaza. Following the latest U.S. strikes, the Houthis reported at least 53 people killed and around 100 wounded in Sana'a city and other provinces. The UN has urged all sides to show maximum restraint and called for an end to military operations in Yemen, stressing that international law must be respected.
We call for utmost restraint and a cessation of all military activities. Any additional escalation could exacerbate regional tensions, fuel cycles of retaliation that may further destabilize Yemen and the region, and pose grave risks to the already dire humanitarian situation in the country. We emphasize that international law, including international humanitarian law as applicable, must be respected by all parties at all times.
Israel resumed its airstrikes to Gaza, killing at least 19 people, according to the health authorities, ending weeks of relative calm after ceasefire talks stalled. Israel and Hamas each blamed the other for breaching the truce, which had broadly held since January. Hamas, holding 59 hostages from the October 2023 attack, accused Israel of undermining ceasefire negotiations, but did not threaten retaliation. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said strikes were ordered after Hamas rejected ceasefire extension proposals. After all, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said it will not give up on the Gaza ceasefire and vowed to continue efforts.
I believe that the role of the UN is to do everything to convince the parties and to have the international community pressing for three essential aspects. First, for the ceasefire to be fully respected. Second, for humanitarian aid to have access to Gaza in an unimpeded way. And third, for the unconditional release of hostages. And we will not give up on these objectives.
Amid rising US tariffs on foreign products, Kazakhstan is attracting increasing attention from international investors. In an exclusive interview with New Time reporter Baljan Samigulina, Andrew McDowell, Director General of the European Investment Bank, spoke about the growing interest in Kazakhstan, particularly in projects related to critical raw materials. McDowell also highlighted a €200 million loan to Kazakhstan that was proceeded last week, aimed at boosting transport infrastructure and renewable energy development. He also touched upon a loan to Ukraine to strengthen its military capabilities and support the country's resilience amidst ongoing conflict. What other projects the EIB is interested in investing, and what changes has the bank put within the geopolitical tensions in the region? Watch the fragment of the interview to find out the answers right now.
Mr. McDowell, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And there has been announcement within your trip to Kazakhstan that €200 million has been allocated to Kazakhstan. Could you please share about the details on what spheres it will be dedicated for, please?
Indeed, we confirmed a €200 million loan to the Development Bank of Kazakhstan to finance both sustainable transport projects as well as renewable energy projects. On the transport side, our financing will go towards the rehabilitation and renovation of 5,000 kilometers of roads across Kazakhstan, but linked to the Trans-Caspian corridor. Obviously, that's a win-win partnership because that helps trade between the European Union and Kazakhstan and the rest of Asia. But locally, it also creates about 3,500 jobs and obviously improves the quality of transport for the citizens of Kazakhstan. Equally, on the energy side, we'll be financing renewable energy projects, which again is good for the world because it reduces carbon emissions and good for the European Union, but also good for Kazakhstan because it obviously increases Kazakhstan's energy independence, as well as reduces in time energy costs for Kazakhstan and reduces pollution.
Kazakhstan aims to expand the market share on the battery materials too, especially taking into account that US now has imposed 25% duties on foreign steel and aluminum. Can we expect perhaps new investments from your bank to Kazakhstan as well, and perhaps also on the critical raw materials, which 19 out of 34 materials that listed by the EU are here?
Absolutely, and this is another has huge potential for another win-win partnership between the European Union and Kazakhstan. Obviously, European industry, particularly the auto industry, but other industries as well, have huge needs for the critical raw materials that you mentioned. And Kazakhstan has enormous wealth and natural resources in these particular areas. And this morning we heard from ministers in your government of the desire to collaborate with Europe in financing, in technology, in transport, in processing, not just about the extraction of those materials, but also building up local industries in Kazakhstan, local value added, local employment, in a sustainable way, and in a way that meets the highest environmental and social standards, involving local communities and benefiting local communities, in a way that's sustainable for the future. So we think this is an area of enormous potential in terms of collaboration. EIB, European Investment Bank, has a lot of expertise and financing power to support projects of this nature, and we look forward to further discussions in this particular space.
Let's now a little bit switch off to the global issues. How does EIB view the instability now in Europe that has been facing now in the last years. How does the bank view and approach military funding? Because there were discussions that a loan can be allocated for the Ukraine for strengthening its military capabilities. If this is the case, what terms and what funds will be allocated there?
Well, as you know, the European Union is a strong supporter of Ukraine. The European Union is determined to support the resilience of Ukraine during the conflict and hopefully soon a post-conflict reconstruction of Ukraine. And we're, as the financing arm of the European Union, we will play our part in that. In fact, only last week we signed a €2 billion agreement, guarantee agreement, to allow us to increase our financing for transport, for housing, for connectivity, for energy resilience in Ukraine, which will mean a significant step up in our level of activity in Ukraine over the coming months. In security and defence more broadly, that's really about inside the European Union itself. And while the European Investment Bank doesn't finance weapons, we do finance infrastructures that obviously are really important for security and defence more generally inside the European Union. But we really believe the best form of security is through prosperity and partnerships with other countries.
But has there been any changes put into your policy within these, geopolitical tensions?
Clearly, we are stepping up our support for Ukraine, and this is a long-term commitment that we are making. Ukraine is a candidate country now since last year of the European Union, will enter the membership of the European Union. And like other candidate countries, it can expect a lot more support from the European Investment Bank. And more broadly, yes, we are also looking at investments inside the European Union that contribute to the resilience and security of the European Union in areas like cyber, our port security, our energy security inside the European Union. So areas that have simultaneously support the economy, but also the resilience and security of our society in the face of the increased geopolitical threats that we now see.
So in my very last question, taking into account now the second term of the US President Donald Trump, what changes in policy of your bank can be anticipated here, or how do you feel in general now, the financial and investment area on the global arena?
Well, look, I think in general there was a famous architect of European Union called Jean Monnet, who always said that Europe is forged in crisis. And what he meant by that is Europe is at its best during periods of turmoil, during periods of crisis. We saw this during the financial crisis 15 years ago with increased European Union integration. We saw it during COVID, more recently with new instruments and new collaboration. And we're seeing it now in Europe. We're seeing the democracies of Europe coming together in a stronger way than ever before to collaborate in areas like strategic autonomy in critical industries, boosting our industries in the face of trade conflict, and security and defence, as we've discussed. So obviously we reflect that in the European Investment Bank as the financial arm of the European Union. We help finance those agreements that European Union countries are making in areas like security and defence, strategic autonomy, artificial intelligence, cyber resilience, energy security. These are areas where there's increasing consensus about the need for Europe to be an independent actor in the world and a strong actor in the world. And that brings forward investments that need to be financed. And we will be there to help support that integration and that advancement of Europe in partnership with countries like Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
France and Uzbekistan have officially elevated their relations to the level of strategic partnership. During Shavkat Mirziyoyev's state visit to Paris, the two sides signed an agreement worth over 6.5 billion euros and outlined new priorities for cooperation. Particular attention was given to strengthening ties in the uranium sector, which has become increasingly important for France amid supply disruptions from Niger. For more on this and other news topics from Central Asia, we turn to political expert Ozhet Shegirbayev. Good evening, Ozhet. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dorian, for giving me the floor. I will be ready to share my Central Asia news in a moment. Presidents of Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, Sadir Japarov and Emomali Rahmon, signed a historic agreement on the state border at the Intema-Kardov building in Bishkek during Rahmon's state visit to Kyrgyzstan. According to preliminary reports, the leaders of Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan may exchange ratification notes on March 31 at the announced Fergana Valley summit. Following the exchange, the border demarcation process will commence, involving the installation of border markers and related infrastructure. The total length of the Kyrgyz-Tajik border is around 1,000 kilometers, of which 519 kilometers were delineated before 2011, while 486.9 kilometers have been redefined only the past 3 years. As a result of the meeting in Bishkek, directives were issued to reopen 2 border checkpoints between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, namely Kızılbel-Guliston and Khayragash-Madaniyat, which had been closed since the border conflicts of May 2021. Additionally, the heads of state agreed to resume air travel between the 2 countries. Starting March 14, flights will be reinstated on the routes Bishkek-Dushanbe and Bishkek-Khujand. From April 8, the Kyrgyz airline Osmana Airlines will launch flights between the capital of Kyrgyzstan and an administrative center of Tajikistan subregion, the city of Khujand. Overall, the resolution of border issues will elevate bilateral cooperation to a new level, while the practical measures taken will help to restore and expand trade volumes and strengthen business ties between the 2 countries. The Central Asia International Industrial Cooperation Center will be located near Kazakhstan's Atamiken and Uzbekistan's Gulistan border checkpoints. Kazakhstan plans to allocate approximately 50 million of USD for the creation of the center. The total area of the center has been set at 100 hectares, with each site allocating 50 hectares of land. The center is expected to facilitate the establishment of new industries and jobs, the processing of agricultural and industrial products, and the development of pharmaceutical, electrical, chemical, leather, textile, and garment manufacturing industries. Additionally, a trade center in Tashkent is planned to promote the sale of Kazakhstan's goods, while a similar center may be built in Astana for the sale of Uzbekistani products. The technical launch of the center is scheduled for the end of 2026, while the official opening is set for 2027. President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, has concluded his state visit to France at March 12. During the visit, France and Uzbekistan have agreed to elevate their relations to the level of a long-term strategic partnership, as stated in the joint declaration by Presidents Emmanuel Macron and Shavkat Mirziyoyev. It was noted that Uzbekistan's expanding presence in the uranium industry is becoming increasingly significant for France, particularly in the light of the Nigerian authorities' suspension of the French company Oranos operations, which disrupted key uranium supply chains. In this context, France is actively seeking to diversify its energy supply sources. Moreover, during the visit, Uzbekistan signed a package of over 20 agreements and contracts in the fields of agriculture, energy, green economy, healthcare and education. In the presence of the heads of states, an exchange of documents took place, including agreements on specialist and student mobility, mutual visa exemptions for diplomatic passports holders, and a cooperation program for the implementation of projects totaling for 6.5 billion euro. The Eurasian Economic Commission has received an official notification from the Iranian authorities confirming the completion of domestic procedures required for the entry into force of the free trade agreement between the Eurasian Union and Iran. The agreement provides for the elimination of import duties on over 85% of Iranian goods and the removal of export duties on 88% of the Eurasian product categories. Notably, the agreement exempts from export duties shipments of Kazakh wheat up to 3 million tons per year and barley up to 1.5 million tons per year. That's all from my part. Happy Nowruz. Dorian, giving floor back to you.
Thank you very much. It was our political expert, Ozhet Shegirbayev. This week, the world celebrates Nowruz, a 3,000-year-old holiday marking the first day of spring. Observed between March 20 and 22, it holds deep cultural significance in both Persian and Turkic traditions, celebrated in over 20 countries. In 2009, Nowruz was added to UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage list, and the UN declared March 21st as International Nowruz Day. Over 300 million people worldwide celebrate this holiday with family gathering, gift exchanges and festive meals. In Dushanbe, Tajikistan, an exhibition highlighted Nowruz symbols and traditions, showcasing artworks that capture the holiday spirit. As the countdown to Nowruz began, the Iranian Grand Bazaar in Tehran was bustling with last-minute shoppers. Stalls were packed with goods and the streets were adorned with decorative eggs and traditional symbol of Nowruz. In the days leading up to the holiday, Tehran's residents celebrated Chorshanbe Suri, a fire festival held on the last Wednesday of the Iranian year. People jumped over bonfires, believing it burned away sorrow and negativity, welcoming joy and goodness in return. For many Iranians, this celebration reflected the very essence of their culture.
Nowruz is indeed an extraordinary valuable celebration for us Iranians, and the most important aspect of it is that feeling of renewal, letting go of all grudges, negativity and ugliness. The beautiful ceremonies, traditions and customs, in my opinion, reflect the essence of an Iranian. It showcases the value of a way of life in the world that we all take pride in.
President Tokayev congratulated the people of Kazakhstan on Nowruz. A festive celebration and concert were held at the Expo Center in Astana to mark the occasion. The head of state noted that Nowruz is an integral part of Kazakh traditions and culture. My colleague Aynur Mangali was there and is ready to share the highlights. Aynur, hello, happy Nowruz.
Hello, Doran, thank you very much.
So please tell us, what else did the president say and what were the other memorable moments at the event?
Yes, Doran, as you rightfully mentioned, Nowruz is undoubtedly an important holiday for all Turkic people, symbolizing the renewal of nature. Since ancient times, people have celebrated the transition from winter to spring awakening. This holiday is rich in symbols and meanings, which the peoples of Eurasia have preserved to this day. Today, the head of state took part in a concert program dedicated to the celebration of Nowruz. The Expo Exhibition Center in Astana was bustling with people. Masters from Kazakhstan and abroad showcased their works, ceramic, copper, wood and textile products. For example, a ceramics master from Turkey, Ahmet Taşımçı, shared insights about his craft, which has also been recognized with UNESCO award.
Benim şehrimde Menemen'de
I currently live in Menemen, where there is a pottery workshop that has passed down knowledge from generation to generation. I have been practicing this craft for 45 years, and I am now considered one of the best masters in Turkey, having won many awards. This is my second visit to Kazakhstan. I once crafted a vase measuring 5-6 meters in height and 4.5 meters in width, which was recognized by the Guinness World Records and listed by UNESCO.
We also had the opportunity to learn more about the ancient art of metal engraving, which originated in Iran around 4,000 years ago. Iranian craftsmen have preserved this tradition to this day and brought their works created using this technique to Astana.
You probably know that the holiday of Nowruz has its origin in Iran. In Persian, Nowruz means new day. Of course, there are differences in how our countries celebrate this holiday, but there are also many similarities. For example, we also celebrate the Day of Meetings, set the table with dishes made from 7 main ingredients, and observe Nowruz for several days. Therefore, I would like to sincerely congratulate the people of Kazakhstan on this holiday.
Meanwhile, a craftswoman from Azerbaijan told us about the unique carpet waving technique.
For example, here you can see horns, a symbol of bravery among Turkic peoples, not only in Azerbaijan. And these are scissors, a common motif used by female weavers, as scissors are essential for trimming a carpet pile. Everything the weavers saw around them, they reflected in their carpets.
After touring the exhibition hall, the head of state delivered a welcoming speech and congratulated people of Kazakhstan on Nowruz. Let's listen to a fragment of his speech.
Улустың ұлы күні тазалық мерекесі.
Nowruz is a holiday of purity. Following a good folk tradition, on this day we plant trees, clean springs and improve public spaces. Nowruz is rightfully considered a holiday of labor. With the arrival of spring, agricultural work begins. This year has been declared the year of working professions. Our main goal is to enhance the prestige of labor, as diligence is a quality inherent in the most progressive nations.
Representatives of the diplomatic corps also attended the festive concert. In a conversation with me, foreign ambassadors highlighted the importance of the holiday for unity and cohesion among people and took the opportunity to extend their Nowruz greetings to Kazakh people.
I feel that people are very relaxed and starting a new step in their life. I see people everywhere making traditional clothes. That's why I am in traditional clothes, to show that we are celebrating with you, we are with the heart with you, and I wish to all Kazakh people happy Nowruz, happy year, and everything they wish could happen this year, inshallah.
It's my very first Nowruz here, but of course I know about the holiday. I know that it brings spring and some new beginnings and some aspirations and hopes. So I really like such positive holidays. I understood that it started already on Friday, last Friday, and it will continue for a full week. That's the great part of the holiday. So I'm looking forward to it, and of course I congratulate it to all Kazakh people, all the happiness, all the new beginnings to be very, very positive, and I want everybody to be very peaceful wherever they are.
Darren, I would like to congratulate you and our viewers on the holiday of spring renewal, Nowruz. That's all from me. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Ainur, for this detailed report. And I must admit, the red suits you really well.
Oh, thank you.
So, that was the week through the eyes of New Time reporters. We're wishing everyone a wonderful weekend and happy Nowruz. So stay tuned and see you next week.